Shabbat Shalom. Good morning, everyone. I am Rabbi Jenny Greenspan from Congregation Beth-El, and it is time for our weekly Shabbat morning Torah Talk. This week we will be talking about Parashat Ki Tetzei, when you go out. So if you have a copy of the Etz Chaim Chumash, our Torah portion today begins on page 1112. But I will be looking on page 1117, chapter 22, verse 8 of the book of Deuteronomy. As usual, if you have a copy of the Etz Chaim Chumash, feel free to follow along in the physical book with me. If you'd like a download of the Torah portion, it's available under our Shabbat morning resources on our website, bez613.org. And again, if you're using any other Chumash, if it's not an Etz Chaim, but you have a Chumash or other Torah copy available to you at home, I am in Deuteronomy chapter 22, and I will be on verse 8. Our Torah portion begins on Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10, with Ki Tetzei. And so for now, good morning and Shabbat Shalom to Miles Siegel and to Jim Roth, to Carol Steinfeld and Ellen Hamburger, and Shabbat Shalom, good morning to Marty Lip and to Phyllis Luger and Mickey Ashworth. So good to see you all each week. And Shabbat Shalom and good morning. So as I said, this morning we will be discussing the Parshat Ki Tetzei. It's the Torah portion that would be normally read if we were completely live this morning. If you join us for services in a little bit, as has been the case when we are celebrating a young person becoming bar or bat mitzvah, we will do a combination of this Torah portion as well as the Torah portion that was unfortunately rescheduled. So our bar mitzvah this morning will be reading from Acharei Mot and Kedoshim. He already had a double portion, and we will be doing a bit from Ki Tetzei. So in a little bit, we will get to hear from our bar mitzvah on those other two Torah portions, and for now, we'll hear about Ki Tetzei. And we're juggling three beautiful pieces of Torah this morning, all of which are exploring different ways of dealing with one another. All of them are interactions and laws set toward making us holy, toward us interacting with others well, and toward us honoring God. So we'll get started in just a moment. And Shabbat Shalom, good morning, Cheryl, too. So glad you've joined us, too. So this morning, we are on Ki Tetzei, which is, I believe, the Torah portion with the largest number of mitzvot, with the largest number of traditional laws, commandments given to us. I believe we have the tally, if I remember the trivia correctly, is 70 mitzvot given in this Torah portion. And what is fascinating to see, if you have the time, is to go through and see how many of these mitzvot our sages, the early rabbis, play up and play down. At the very beginning of the Torah portion, we have the somewhat famous discussion of the wayward child, the ben sorer or moreh, the wayward son who is so rebellious and a drunk and a glutton and won't listen to his parents. And you see the rabbis in the Talmud narrow the scope of that law so as to make it such that we have it as a legal learning exercise and an exercise in learning how to think, but not actually a law that we ever carry out. If you'd like, you can email me and I'll tell you where in the Talmud to read up on the different legal ways that they pull that apart. But it ends up being the child has to be a very particular age, and the parents have to look exactly alike. The mother and the father need to look exactly alike and sound exactly alike with the same voice. So they narrow it out of existence. And then other laws, which is one I want to look at today, they expand dramatically to mean much more than what the Torah itself said. And I think that there's an interesting case to take a look at, and we're going to look at one of those and then do a little bit of a comparison and understanding, I think, as to why our early sages wanted to narrow the one and expand the other. So Shabbat Shalom. Let's get started. Good morning to Shelley Rubenstein, to Julia Whitehead, and Renee Fout. Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. So let's take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 8. Ki tivne bait chadash ve'asita ma'akeh legagecha ve'lo tasim damim beveitecha kol yipol hanofel mimenu. If you build a new house, when you build a new house, you must make a parapet on your roof so that you do not bring blood guilt onto your house if anyone falls from it. If you are building any kind of new house, the rabbis will later expand, if you buy a house that's new to you, you must make a parapet on your roof so that nobody falls from it and you do not end up guilty if someone were to fall from it. Rashi, one of the most known line-by-line Torah commentators, notes that me'akah in the Hebrew is a word that is almost as strange as parapet in English, and says, okay, this is a word that we have to understand from context what it means, and so Rashi tells us we mean a fence, like we do by a parapet, a fence around a roofing space. In the ancient world, roofs were much more likely to be flat than they are here in Indianapolis, and they were therefore likely to be a space that someone might be spending time on the roof. And so the Torah tells us if you build a new house, you have to put a fence around your roof so that you do not end up liable if someone falls off of it. It's a fairly straightforward and a fairly specific case given in the Torah. It's saying just the one case when you build a new house. And yet, we're going to take a quick walk through a couple of stages in history where we watch our sages expand this law out to a point that I think it is incredibly relevant even today. In the Talmud, so we're looking around, first a Baraita, a Tanaitic statement around the 2nd century. We have a statement from Rabbi Natan who says, how do we know that one cannot raise a vicious dog or a violent animal, nor that one could set up an unstable ladder on their house such that it would fall if someone is to climb up onto the roof? He quotes this verse, you would not bring the blood guilt onto your house. You don't want to do anything that would make you responsible for an avoidable accident around your house. Later, and that is, if you wanted to look it up, in the Talmud on Masechet Baba Kama, page 15b. In the Talmud, so now we're on commentary level in the Talmud, so we're looking around the 4th to 6th centuries. Someone says in the Masechet Chulin on 136a, we're talking about your roof, singularly. We notice gagecha in our Hebrew verse, means that we mean every single one of us is responsible for what Rabbi Natan said of making sure we don't raise a violent animal or a vicious animal or put up an unstable ladder. Every single one of us is responsible for helping to set up safety and avoid these avoidable accidents. Then we're going to fast forward a little bit to Rambam, or Rabbi Moses Maimonides, who was both a philosopher and a halachicist, who wrote the Mishneh Torah, a review of the Torah, and attempted to make a law code that the average Jew could follow even if he or she didn't have time to study the Torah in depth. And he says, when we look at the commandment to make the parapet on your roof, to make this fencing on your roof, this law is not just about your house. It's about any kind of space that could be dangerous. He says, for instance, if you set up a well in your property or you have some kind of pit in your land, you have to build either a fence around it or some kind of covering so that nobody would fall into it and die. And furthermore, Rambam, who is writing in Egypt in the late 1100s, also suggests that the sages prohibited anything that could cause danger. He even suggests that you cannot drink from a fountain that is known to have cause sickness. In the 1170s, they didn't quite know about bacteria, but if you're drinking from a fountain that has made people sick, they say he would suggest that you shouldn't smoke. Anything that can lead to danger to the body, Rambam, Rabbi Moses Maimonides, was against. So he takes this verse about a fence on a roof and says, set up every possible safety precaution you can and take the utmost care of your life and of others' lives. Take care of human life. And then Rabbi Caro in Sfat in the 1560s, so a few hundred years later, adds in on the Shulchan Aruch that if you do not build this fence, any version of building a fence, someone has actually violated both a positive commandment to build the fence and a negative commandment of not causing an avoidable accident, of not letting the blood guilt fall upon you. So these are the rabbis layering in these very intensive punishment, not a punishment, but adding layers and underlining this verse that was just about a parapet originally. It was just about a fence. And they have expanded it out to mean do everything you can to allow for safety for people. Put a fence around a well or a pit, or cover it up. Don't drink from a place that could cause you to be sick, and don't encourage others to do so. I think if they were writing today, they would probably say wear the facial coverings when out in public or within 6 feet of other human beings, so that you don't potentially cause them illness, since there's a known danger. So anytime there's a known danger, we should do our best to avoid that danger and help safely move people forward. They seem to read this verse as, rather than when you build a new house, you shall make a parapet on your roof, is just when you are setting something up or going out in a way and encountering something that could be dangerous, do what you can to keep it safe, so that you can help avoid avoidable accidents with other human beings. And it boils down to take care of one another and take care of yourself to be as safe as possible. And so this is a verse that they have expanded dramatically, as opposed to where I said the wayward son, that they narrowed to the point that it wouldn't really happen. And I think that this is pushing the entire crux of the project of Deuteronomy, and one of the biggest projects of the Jewish people is taking care of one another. That we want to expand the rules that allow us to put safety first, and we want to narrow the rules that would be less forgiving of children who are a little too rebellious, and not allow for parents to get to decide exactly where wayward is and what is too rebellious for safety. So I think the largest message that comes out of Ki Tetzei, this Torah portion today, is that we will do our best to take care of one another, that we can use each of the 70 mitzvot throughout this portion to look at other people and take care of other human beings. Most of these 70 are the mitzvot we would categorize as bein adam lechavero, between one another, so that we can best take care of one another. And so as we move into this week, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. Hope that we can all continue to have a safe week, that we can do what we can to help keep ourselves and others safe, and that we can move forward with joy and have an opportunity for love and growth throughout our week. And Shabbat Shalom. I see Jody Zucker joined us. So Jody Zucker joined us. So Shabbat Shalom and good morning to you as well. I look forward to seeing you all in person soon when it is safe. For now, we'll stay this way for safety. And if you would like to join us, please do join us for our Shabbat morning services at 10 o'clock. We will have the bar mitzvah of Ari Harold. If you would like to join us either from the Zoom link, which you will have received in the congregational email, or you can just watch us from the live stream by just going to bez613.org and clicking over to watching our live stream, where you'll get the wide view of the whole bima. And if you join us on the Zoom, you can be a little more interactive. But and that link is in our congregational email. Shabbat Shalom. Good morning. I look forward to seeing you all in about 15 minutes at 10 o'clock for services.